Hello and welcome to my C# string handling series. This lesson is Override ToString in your C# classes. Hi, my name's Paul Sheriff, and I have a passion for teaching. I have been training for over 35 years. I've written 14 books, hundreds of video training courses, articles, and blog posts. I've been a speaker at major conferences and user groups. I'm a mentor for high school and college students. I've owned a software consulting business for over 30 years. You can contact me at psheriff@pdsa.com or visit my website at www.pdsa.com. For this lesson, I'm going to assume that you are familiar with both C# and .NET. The objectives for this lesson are to understand the ToString method and the reasons why we might want to override it. I'll also give you some best practices. The ToString method is implemented on the object data type in C# and it simply returns the class name by default. Now you should always override this in your classes so that you can provide a user-friendly value to identify each object. So the reasons to override ToString are to display a readable value in the following situations, like in debugging windows, or when hovering over an object in break mode. You do not need to use var.toString, for instance. When using console.writeLine, just simply use var name. The ToString is implied. You might also use it when you're loading up list boxes. Let's go ahead and create a product class and display the default ToString result. Here we have a public class called product. It has two properties, a product name and a product ID. In the program.cs in this console application, I'm doing a using on ToString samples because that's the namespace in which the product class was created. I'm going to create product entity equals new, and I'm going to assign a product ID of 1 and a product name to Acme Bazooka. And then we'll simply do a console.writeLine on that entity. If we run this, what we see is the namespace dot class name, because that is the default ToString method that is implemented in the object class, which is what every class you create inherits from. Now that we've seen what happens by default, let's now override the ToString method. On line 8, I create a public override string ToString. So I'm overriding the ToString method contained in the object class. And all I'm going to do first off is I'm going to return product name. If we now go back and we run the application, so we're going to create that same entity and do a console.writeLine on entity, now that code that we wrote will run. So we're now going to get the product name displayed in our console window. You can do whatever you want to do inside of that ToString. It could be a lot of code. Try to keep it as simple as possible. But let's take a look at using a little bit more code where I'm going to use an interpolated string. I've replaced line 10 with an interpolated string where now I'm going to put out onto the console window or wherever this ToString is called from. I'm going to put out the product name, a space, an open parenthesis, and then the product ID, and then a closing parenthesis. I like having a unique identifier in there so that as I'm looking at this object in memory, either in a debug window or hovering over it, I have a uniqueness. I understand exactly which object is that I'm looking at. Let's go ahead and run this, and we should see then the product name, and then in parentheses, we see the product ID. Let's talk about the best practices for overriding ToString. First off, make the value readable, short, and friendly to users. Return values that are meaningful to your users. Use formatting where applicable. Uniquely identify each object instance. And do not throw an exception, change any property values, return an empty string or null, and do not return any sensitive information. Do you know why you should subscribe to YouTube channels? You'll get notifications when new videos appear. You'll get recommendations for related channels. It helps the channel grow, which allows me to create more videos for you. It helps attract others to my channel. Your like helps others find videos that are good. So please take the time to like and subscribe to my channel, Paul D. Sheriff. I hope you enjoyed this short lesson on overriding the ToString method in C#.